Welcome back to Light the Fuse, and not just any old Light the Fuse, Charles. This is the 200th episode, 200. We have been doing this podcast since summer of 2018, and here we are. How do you feel?
Drew, I feel great. This is pretty crazy. This is quite a landmark. I feel like we've been climbing a mountain for the last 4 years. And we've reached the top. Not that we're done, but, it's been quite a climb.
We've peaked in some respects with this episode, and it is going to be hard to figure out where we go from here. But we got some good ideas, so we will be around.
Yeah, I think we'll find some more peaks.
Yeah.
It's not over. But I want to tell everybody out there, if you're just stopping by for the first time, we're available on all podcast platforms. Please visit our website, LightTheFusePodcast.com, where you'll find links to all the different platforms we're on. Also, check out the episode guide to see show notes for every episode. It's a great visual companion. And our old episodes, it's insane. There are a lot of great ones. If you like directors, we've had Brian De Palma, which is just absolutely insane. And he's a genius. We've had Brad Bird, Christopher McQuarrie, plus we had the John Wick directors, Chad Stahelski and David Leitch. And recently, the director of Top Gun Maverick, Joseph Kosinski. This is just an insane lineup of amazing people. If you like screenwriters, David Koepp, Ronald Moore, Nemec, and Applebaum, who did Ghost Protocol, McQuarrie, obviously, Seth Grahame-Smith and Liz Hanna, who's the writer of The Post and Long Shot. Beyond that, so many Oscar winners, nominees, brilliant artists. We've had cinematographers, composers, editors, production designers, costume designers, VFX supervisors and VFX artists, special makeup effects artists, stunt coordinators, stunt performers, sound designers, storyboard artists, title designers. How about actors from the original TV show? We had Barbara Bain, who won 3 Emmys for playing Cinnamon Carter in the original TV series, and Oscar nominee Leslie Ann Warren, who was in season 5 of the old show. So, it's crazy. And if you love John Wick, we've got our whole Light the Wick miniseries that you got to check out. And, of course, don't forget about our Top Gun Maverick miniseries, Light the Fuselage, which we've just been doing. Please check it all out. It is a treasure trove of behind-the-scenes filmmaking. And a lot of these people are dear friends now, or they've become friends. It's been an amazing journey for us.
I feel like we've willed them into friendship more than anything else.
Forced them.
I don't know if they knew they were getting into that when they came on the podcast, but now we're bothering them to go to lunch with us and
brutalize
and
them with constant, endless emails.
Yes,
Please be our friend. Tell us more about how you made these amazing movies.
Yeah, and we love it. And I just want to set up this episode, Charles.
Yes.
Because I want to set up what it was going into it and what it became. So
yeah,
we had Christopher McQuarrie and Eddie Hamilton, who I would count very much in the dear friend zone. And they agreed to be on the 200th just to kind of give us an update on the next 2 movies, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 and 2, and obviously to talk a little bit about Top Gun Maverick. What we didn't know was McQuarrie said, "Let me be the host of this Zoom call. I'm going to let people in." So that was a warning sign.
Yes.
But then let's just run through quickly, Charles, without too much elaboration, who shows up on this podcast.
Yeah, I feel like, maybe we just let it play out. But I think we should say who's there from the beginning. Obviously, you said already McQuarrie, who was the writer-director of Rogue Nation and Fallout, and the next 2 missions, and Eddie Hamilton, who is the editor of all these amazing Mission Impossible movies and Top Gun Maverick. But also, right from the start, writer Erik Jenderson was there, who is a newbie to our show. And he doesn't talk too much, but he, as McQuarrie said, has been helping him out with this movie. So I don't know if he'll end up with a co-writing credit on this one or what. But it was great to have him. Do you want to tell? I feel like we should let the Zoom bombs kind of play out. What do you think?
Well, I think people know that this is the episode.
Yes.
This is the episode that we meet our hero, Tom Cruise.
Yeah, it was similar to the 100th episode where people were kind of popping in.
Yes. We did not expect this.
And Tom Cruise was not there the whole time. We should warn people about that. But he is on for quite a while.
Yes.
Should we say it was 45 minutes that he's on, which is unbelievable.
Don't skip ahead, though. Do not skip ahead.
No.
Just let it play. I promise.
Especially because there's great setup for his arrival as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so you gotta definitely check that out. And also a heads up that there are a few Zoom hiccups that you'll have to endure, but we keep it fun and we've been able to edit it pretty tight, so it's definitely an amazing listen all the way through, and it's spoiler free basically, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, anytime we propose something that could or could not be in the movie, we just get rejected pretty soundly. So,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
at this point, I think McQuarrie isn't giving out any info that he doesn't want people to know at this point in time.
yes, but we do get to talk to a new cast member, which is very exciting.
Yes, a couple of new cast members, but we get to announce one as well, which
Yeah.
people maybe know by now. Since it's in the title. But another thing is we talk about the CinemaCon footage a bit, and just as a little bit of setup, like if you want to hear a full description of what that was, what we saw at CinemaCon, which I don't think will ever be released to the public, will it?
I doubt that. No, yeah, I mean that was specifically for a CinemaCon audience. So
Yeah, it was a bit they filmed just for the CinemaCon audience to introduce the Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 trailer. So go back and listen to our CinemaCon episode if you want to hear a description of what that was. But we talk a bit about that and how they made that, which is amazing. So that CinemaCon episode is episode 194.
Okay, well, should we just get into it? I know I got shout outs to give, but after that, should we just dive right in?
Just one last thing. Should we announce next week's guest? Or tease it now and then announce it at the end?
Sure. You want to? How do we tease it? Maybe I'll ask you a cue at the end of this episode. You know what I mean?
Well, I think they figured it out now.
Well, we'll see. We don't know.
Yes.
You know. Okay, I'll ask you a cue at the end of this episode. You give me an answer. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds great. All right. So you got to do your favorite part of the show.
Oh yes. So once again, and these guys have helped us out for so long. So I'm really happy to announce them on such a great, big, important episode. But obviously, Jeremy Dillon and his podcast, My Favorite Album. Also, John B. and the one and only Elvis Ripley. These are three people who have helped us out through thick and thin, and we love them to death. So thank you guys so much. Okay, Charles, is this it? Should we get into it? 200 time.
I think it's time.
Okay.
Let's lay it on them. Everybody, enjoy the 200th.
We'll be back. All right, this is the 200th episode, but I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't throw in a little Light the Fuselage right here and say congratulations on the overwhelming success. I think it's safe to say Top Gun Maverick, the movie of the summer of 2022. How are you guys feeling? Just tell us everything.
Kind of stunned. I think that was one that could have gone either way. I was honestly, I felt very good about the movie. I didn't know if there was an audience for that sort of movie anymore. A movie that was sincere and earnest and, you know, a little bit from the heart, I guess. And it turns out that the audience was still there, just that the great many movies weren't. So I was very, very happy.
Yeah, but that's somewhat untrue because there have been huge movies that have come out against it in the weeks since it opened, and it is still the number one or number two movie every week, which is pretty amazing for this day and age.
I would not know. I have not obsessively read the stats every day.
Well, that's what we're here for.
It's still like amazingly, it's still making like 5 million a night, isn't it? Like every single night of the week.
3.8, Eddie. Not that I would know. That's just.
I'm sure it made 5 on Wednesday or something. But anyway, there we are.
Eddie, how are you feeling?
I'm still processing it, but I'm thrilled for movie lovers, and I'm thrilled for cinemas worldwide. And I'm thrilled that people are rediscovering the joy of a great night out at the movies, to be honest. And
that's it.
You dream all your life. When you think about working in the film industry, you dream of playing a part in a movie that may have some cultural impact and stand the test of time. And as I've said to you guys before, if it happens once in your career, you treasure that moment, because some people it never happens. And so I'm just completely thrilled that it has resonated and people have loved it. And we had no idea really when we were making it if it was going to resonate as much as we hoped it would. And luckily the audience reception has just been completely wonderful for everybody involved in it. You know, it will change that cast's lives forever. Mm-hmm. You know, which I remember, I think Tom sort of warned them that might happen, but I don't think any of them really believed it necessarily. And then, especially since they had to wait 2 years, but then it really has changed their lives. So it's just wonderful. I'm just thrilled.
Does this make Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, are you more at ease with that, or does this put more pressure on that?
Well, yes, when we were doing the premiere in San Diego, I saw the press line, and it had been a while since we'd been to an event like that. Probably on my third interview, it started to sink in when they said, "How do you feel about all the great reviews and the great response?" And I said, "I have to make more movies." It was quite intense, and you want to live up to it. But look, the Top Gun is a very different animal than Mission Impossible. And Top Gun was a cultural icon. It was 35 years of it's comfort food. And so that was a different animal and a different thing to handle. It's also the culmination of everything. Tom and myself and Eddie, having worked together for a long time, and Tom and I before that, every movie we take what we learn from it and roll it into the next film. So it certainly altered the way I'm looking at what it is we're doing there. And there are a lot of lessons we'll learn from it. And it will absolutely be a huge influence on the basis of how I do whatever I do moving forward. I gotta say that the reason why we do it, Tom and I talk about this all the time, and Eddie, I know, is the same way. We live to entertain an audience. So that's what we're in this for. I'm not really in it for my brand or for awards. It's really more than anything else. I was dying for the 2 years that this was sitting on the shelf, knowing I can't wait till an audience sees this movie. I can't wait to unleash it on people.
Yeah.
That's what we're taking to Mission, and I'm excited knowing that what you've seen of Mission 7, Part 1, we're calling it now. What you're seeing of Part 1 is just a taste of what is coming in Part 2, and we've already shot a part of Part 2 that I know is beyond anything we've done before. So that's all a long way of answering the question and saying, yeah, I'm scared to death. I'm terrified.
Well,
I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic. I'm not. I will say this. I don't think. I hope, don't take this the wrong way. I don't think Top Gun is a fluke. I think we worked really hard on it, and we were pretty confident in what the end result was. We did not test the final cut of the movie. We looked at it and we said, we pulled this one little thread at the end and said, this is as good as this movie is ever going to be. It's up to the audience now to decide what kind of event it is. That's all we really do.
I ran into Kaczynski a few weeks ago, and he said he had a meeting with Cruise like the next week or something. Is there a possibility for another Top Gun? I mean, is that something that both of you would be interested in pursuing?
I know Miles just vaguely answered a question, and they spun it into a bunch of clickbait articles. I would never say yes, and I would never say no. Immediately after the first one came out, Jerry and Don Simpson went to Tom. This was in 1986, 87, and wanted him to do a sequel to Top Gun. And Tom always said the same thing. He said, there's got to be a great story. There just has to be a great story. My first meeting on Top Gun Maverick was 11 years ago, when Tony Scott was still attached to the movie.
Wow.
So the question is, will anybody but Tom Cruise still be alive when the next sequel comes around? Because he'll be alive.
Yeah. Eddie,
whether any of us in 30 some years are still around.
I was wondering if it was like the thing with pregnancy that they say, like right after you give birth, like the hormones are working so that you kind of forget how much pain it was and everything, so you want another baby right after. So
I don't think of it as pain. It's one of the better experiences I've ever had making movies. It's one of the few times where, in the position I was in, I had some clarity to stand back from it and say, this one's really going to work. Like I did. There wasn't the kind of pain that you felt at the end of, say, Rogue Nation, where we were just depleted, and it was and also we're acclimating now. This is speaking for me and Eddie. I wouldn't say it for anybody else. We are in it for us. It's not a sprint; it's a marathon, and it's all. I characterize my relationship with Tom as one long conversation about movies, occasionally interrupted by production. So whether it's another mission or another Top Gun or the movie that we're currently talking about, which Erik is involved in, it's all the same to me. It's we're all in every time. We're taking everything we've earned and everything we've learned and putting it all on black. And if it works, we get to make another one. And if it doesn't, we're dead.
What's this movie with Erik you're working on?
That's kind of under wraps.
If there was any place to reveal that, McQuarrie, I feel like this is the place.
This is the occasion.
It has neither a fuse nor a fuselage in it. Well, that's not true. It does have a fuselage.
Hey.
But it's it's something we talked about for a really long time. It's way outside of what you're used to seeing Tom do. It's the kind of stuff I really love. It's a little bit more in my wheelhouse in terms of where I'm rooted as a filmmaker. And yet it takes everything we've learned on this journey. If I can characterize what we've done over the course of our relationship, it's been about making movies more and more about emotion and real emotional experiences. I mean, that's what you're feeling when you're watching Top Gun, is Tom and I just absolutely squeezing your adrenals for every bit of emotion. We wanted you to have the whole spectrum. And so now we're applying that to something, I guess, gnarlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. He's done so many types of movies. I'm sure Charles's mind is flipping through the Rolodex of roles and thinking
what's
of
funny,
what he hasn't done.
Look, if it comes off, you will see the ghosts of so many other movies Tom has done, or I have done, or Tom and I have done together. You'll feel kind of the elements of all of that, not through any intention, but somewhat coincidentally, and it's all stuff. Look, everything we do, we look at and go, we could have done that better. So when we finished Rogue Nation, the first thing he said to me at the premiere was, "We can do better." And at Fallout, he said, "We could do better." And when we were at Cannes watching Top Gun, we looked at each other and we laughed. We're like, "We could do better," And so this is everything is just taking the last movie and everything we learned from it and pushing it through another prism. Anyway,
will it feature the editorial magic of one Eddie Hamilton?
If he knows what's good for him, it will.
Whoa!
I don't think.
I see thumbs up from Eddie.
I'm not going anywhere.
All I can tell you is that Matthew Vaughn and I, it's gonna come down to Pistols at Dawn at some point, where there can be only one, and it has to be settled. Eddie is going to be, from this moment on, highly, highly in demand. I've made some pretty egregious predictions about Eddie's future based on. I think he's got a lot of accolades coming his way based on the work that he did on Top Gun.
If we can gush about Eddie for a second, Eddie is so good, and the editing of Top Gun is so good that it makes other movies that are cut, just any movie that's edited, seem kind of shitty in comparison. And
guys.
Can I just say
I love movies. I love all movies. I want all movies to be well. You won't hear me like I'm just a champion of movies, so I'm thrilled. And listen, making good movies is really, really hard. So no one sets out to make a bad movie. We've all heard this.
Can I tell you? I worked really, really hard and made a bad movie. It's just as hard making a bad movie. There is a pleasure in the hard work that goes with sitting there and concentrating on how do we make this better. And so yes, it's really, really hard, but you also know when you're doing something that's working and when you're struggling with something that's not. And we had moments like that. We had moments, and there's one particular sequence in Top Gun that was utterly challenging and a real struggle and a slog. And when the rest of the movie is working and one sequence just isn't, that's even more painful.
What sequence?
I don't think I'm telling tales out of school. The Maverick's first day at teaching what we call the BFM, the basic flight maneuvers, his dogfighting with
Won't Get Fooled Again by The Who.
They Won't Get Fooled Again. There were so many ways to cut that sequence, and it's structurally a challenge, musically a challenge.
Oh yeah, we heard about the unreleased Rolling Stones track.
Oh,
I don't know if McHugh was. Were you? Yeah, do you remember that?
I did hear it. I had forgotten all about it. I also remember, talking about music, I will remember this. We were in Hans Zimmer's studio. This was 2.5 years ago now, and we heard that song for the first time. We heard "Hold My Hand" for the first time. A rough demo of it. And I remember, and Jerry Bruckheimer was there, Tom, Eddie, Hans was there. I think Joe was in LA. I think Joe was in Hans' studio in LA. And I remember Eddie, at a certain point, Tom turned to Eddie and he said, "Eddie, what do you think?" And Eddie said, I'm trying to focus on remembering this moment as clearly as I can for 20 years from now, when we all talk about when we heard this song for the first time. And it was that kind of moment. And that was a thing of having the soundtrack to listen to for 2 years before the movie came out. The torture of, when are people going to finally get to hear this?
I know a couple of guys that would have been nice to share that song with, but
it was you could feel
that was
like
super
a huge piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, if it had been, if I had been directing that movie, that would be a different thing. I'm just one of many people working on that film. So, you know me, I'm not shy about showing stuff early and doing that sort of thing. But I was not authorized.
That moment with Eddie was Charles with the One Republic song. When he heard that for the first time, he just turned to me and said, "This is it." No, we love that song, and it's a perfect dad song for Top Gun Maverick. I feel like just crank it up, throw the barbecue on, just listen to that One Republic song. Go. All right, let's talk about it. Where are you in part one? We're calling it now. Where are you in part one?
You're talking about you're in a blurry line between part one and part two. We've shot pieces of part two. We have pieces of part one that are left over. There's pieces of part one and part two that share the same sets. There's a place in part one that gets revisited in part two, all of which presented kind of a lot of scheduling challenges. I'm sure you've read many stories about how we were going to shoot them at the same time, and then we canceled that plan, and none of which is actually accurate. But both situations are true and untrue at the same time. And we are right at this place now where we're about done creating all the last little bits of part one. And Eddie and I are going to sit down and do a concentrated couple of weeks on editing part one while we're prepping something for part two. And we have the bulk of the third act action sequence in the can for part two.
For part two, okay.
Oh yeah. We already know what the third act of part two is, and it's off the chain. It's Tom topping Tom several times a day.
Is this the planes?
I will let you speculate on that. Yes, and that's one of two really big, really ambitious sequences in the movie.
Okay.
So approximately percentage-wise, how much left of part one do you have to shoot?
Days, really. days. And there's little things we want to go back and tweak. And we have because of the unique schedule, we have an opportunity to do that. You've got cast that are around shooting bits of part 2. We say, hey, we can go back and pick up this little bit of part 1. It kind of lends itself to it. There was a big chunk of part 1 that was still left unresolved at the end of last year, and we came back, and everything that we're doing in part 2 is determined by weather. We have these big set pieces that are very weather dependent. You have to be in a certain part of the world shooting a certain part of the movie at a certain time of year. Otherwise, we would have done what was speculated we were doing, which is we would finish 7, and then shoot 8, or part 1, and then shoot part 2. So there is it's kind of this mixture of days of shooting part 1, days of shooting part 2, weeks of shutting down to edit part 1, and then going back to and that's interrupted by having to go shoot part 2 because of the weather in a specific place. It's a big outdoor epic scale movie, and I got addicted to messy, gnarly environments on 7. I was sandstorms and rain and hard night shooting and stuff like that. I got high winds. We did the whole train sequence, and those were very difficult and very challenging, and they were the kind of things you would normally try to eliminate from your story. And the material we were getting looked so great, I kind of got hooked on it. And now 8 has got a lot of that. It's got extreme environments in it, and frankly, there was nowhere else to go. We had to push the franchise farther, and we push it hard.
Sounds pretty straightforward, honestly. I don't know what the big deal is. Sounds pretty much just, you go out, you got a couple of sound stages, and can we ask about things in the trailer? We've tried to get this stuff out of Eddie and failed miserably, so we figure we'll try with you.
You can ask. You can always ask. Yes.
I just want to know what that eye is on the screen and part of the logo.
That's a good question. Yeah.
What do you think it is?
We were trying to figure out if it's like some kind of like mind control thing, or I'm assuming it's a logo of somebody's evil organization, but I have no idea. Is the Syndicate rebranding? Did they get a new PR team in? Like, this could be anything. I'm
watching Eddie.
He's a sphinx. He won't give us anything.
He's grinning from ear to ear. It's well, first of all, I'm interested that you noticed. For all that could have just been, that just could have been designed. It could have just been it. But it's interesting.
But it comes back for the title treatment at the end too.
Yeah, and it has significance, and it's an evolving visual. We're still kind of playing with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't show up in the movie exactly as it looks in the trailer.
Is that a creation of our friends at ILM, or?
Well, that particular one is a creation of our friends at Filmograph, the guys who do our titles, and we know
we
described to them. We just described to them a concept, and that's what they did. And we looked at it and said, "Oh, that looks cool. We like that." But it does definitely hearken to or allude to something kind of critical in the story. Yes, and it's something that does. It crosses over from part 1 to part 2.
Well, the other big thing in the trailer that we've obsessed about, obviously, is there's a submarine in there.
Oh, yes.
Care to elaborate?
There is a submarine. Well, what I can tell you is this movie contains, as I treat every movie like it's my last, and one day I'm absolutely going to be right. This movie contains everything I've ever wanted to do. These 2 movies contain everything I've ever wanted to do in movies. Like every movie I was never allowed to make has distilled down into these 2 movies. You can see every film that a studio rejected or that no one would trust me to make, or projects that fell apart, they all managed, not so much intentionally, they all managed to kind of percolate through into this big adventure. Tom and I were determined to make this movie a bigger, more epic and more sprawling adventure. And that's a great time to nod to Erik here. Erik is he's somebody I've worked with for a long, long time. He's been a sounding board for me, and I've been a sounding board for him on just about every project we've ever done independently or together for years. And Erik and I are obsessed with submarine movies. Erik is very, 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 he is nautical in his blood. If you could see the tattoo he's got on his arm. He's a lover of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and we love all the same, Das Boot and Ice Station Zebra and Run Silent, Run Deep, and Crimson Tide. I love submarine movies. They're great, sort of the perfect dramatic pressure environment. And we came up with this submarine sequence that then kind of ran away, and it took on a life of its own, as things in Mission do. And it just became this, this submarine became something of a character in and of itself in the story. And I don't know, what else would you say, Erik?
No, that sums it up. I mean, it is. Who hasn't lived their life wanting to make a submarine movie?
I mean, come on, they're the coolest movies ever.
Can I tell you what one of our Patreon members investigated the scuba outfit in the trailer?
Yes.
And they found out that it was something that was used as a kind of, what would you say, Charles? Like you would put it on and you would actually leave the submarine through the missile hatch.
Yeah. And isn't it designed to be put on quickly or something like that?
Yeah.
Interesting. That's all very fascinating.
That sure is.
That sounds like stuff that would be exciting to put in a movie.
I'm telling you, you have very smart fans.
I do not ever underestimate. Look, everything that we did, every shot that we put in that trailer was vetted and carefully thought about in terms of, look, we know every single one of those things is going to be dissected and picked over by somebody. No one has time like the internet. And I would say everything that person is speculating on is certainly something you could do with that suit. Did they say where the suit was from?
Where did they say?
I think they said it was it was Soviet, right? It wasn't a Soviet Union.
McQuarrie.
It's fascinating.
I will tell you the thing that Charles and I have texted about more than anything else, and we've probably bothered Eddie about this too, which is the identity of the silver-haired man in the gas mask. we have gone back and forth. We've done a lot of hypothesizing on that.
I can tell you that what will be fun is watching the movie and then going back and watching the first trailer and following along with Henry's monologue, Henry Cerny's monologue, and also looking at the images and how we interwoven them. There's nothing random in that trailer.
Okay.
There were bits of the Fallout trailer that didn't. There were some great shots and things in the Fallout trailer, some amazing things that didn't end up in the movie. How much of the Dead Reckoning trailer do you think will not end up in the movie?
Any or all. There's a whole sequence in there that if I was really ruthless, I could just take out of the movie. Not that I ever would, but in the end, people still ask me about that helicopter shot in Fallout with the truck.
Yeah.
And they said, what happened? And why did it get cut from the movie? And I said, because it could. It could go, and it went. And Eddie and I really haven't had a moment to sit down and concentrate on an assembly of the movie in order to determine what, if anything, is going to stay or what's going to go. The submarine will be in the movie for sure.
Is it fair to say, Chris, there's a couple of shots that we were going to put in the trailer that we knew were very unlikely to be in the film? So in order to avoid that, there's a couple of places where I do get frustrated as a fan when I watch trailers and they deliberately manufacture shots for a trailer that is clearly never in the movie when you watch the movie, and you think that was very cynical of the marketing team to do that. And so there were a couple of things that we thought, oh, that would be good. And then we thought, no, it's probably not going to be in the film in the cold light of day. So let's not cheat. You know, let's not tease things that will.
Yeah, we've developed a fairly good instinct for what is and what isn't going to make it. And it's interesting with part one, we've isolated those. We said, oh, here's a thing that's kind of a candidate for the chopping block. And we didn't shoot those things. We eliminated a lot of those this time. And then there are other things where we looked at and said, we're definitely going to reshoot this moment because it's in search of something. It's not quite there, or we rushed it. And I think that's really the thing about part one and part two is how much care, how much handcrafting has gone into the making of it. And in both of them, they're shot in a very different style than the last two movies. And we're going to do a casting announcement.
Oh,
here comes Nick Offerman.
Hello,
Nick Offerman.
hello.
Nick Offerman. This is Charles and Drew, and this is the Light Diffuse /Fuselage podcast. And this is Nick Offerman, who I don't think anybody knows is in our movie, and so that's an exclusive announcement.
Which one?
For your show? He is in part two.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
And in fact, he is. We have been working together these last 2 weeks, and Nick is quite literally drinking from the fire hose, getting his first full bore Mission Impossible, seeing how the sausage is made.
That's right.
Yeah, how's that going?
It's really fun and fascinating. There's a handful of very high caliber actors that I'm getting to work with, as well as the lead guy, and watching them all. Getting to toss the ball around is incredible. Getting to watch them all deal with the fire hose technique is just fascinating because everybody brings a great deal of elan and panache and years of experience, and then watching McHugh and Tom do their thing, you can't really describe it to people. It's you have to be there because I've never seen anything like it. It's like they're painting an incredible mural, and we're all the paints.
I mean, what is it like going into the second half of this story? I mean, did you get a full download on what has happened before you showed up?
No, I mean, it seems that part of the recipe is to keep us as in the dark as possible, so that our takes are as fresh as can be. So, I mean, I got the overview. I got the storyline of, like, I think at least of the A story of what's going on with the world and what Ethan Hunt has to save us all from this time. But as we go, then I hear about other actors that are playing villains and such, and so I'm quite titillated to learn what all is going on.
What can you tell us about your character?
Yeah, does that mean you're working with Ethan?
You know what? Before Charles answers that, hold on. Somebody else is jumping in, being joined by another crossover cast member.
What's up?
Ah, our favorite person.
Tarzan, where are you, buddy?
Tarzan's getting the hot spot right now.
Tarzan's getting a hot spot. We are on the bus on the way to Jay Ellis's wedding.
Oh my God, this is awesome.
Where?
We have there.
Who
Who do we have there? I see Glen Powell.
Wow.
I see Jenny Ramirez. And Tarzan.
Okay, Tarzan looks like he's shirtless. Okay, he's wearing a shirt. That's good.
So wait, you're on the way to a wedding?
They're on the way to Jay Ellis's wedding.
Do you want gum? What, do I want gum?
Yeah, I need it.
That's Danny Ramirez in the middle. Yeah.
Guys, how are you?
All right, guys. I think we're figuring this out. One of the things that we really know is that audio quality tends to be very good on buses in the middle of nowhere, Italy.
Yeah.
So
We've done several podcasts like this as well. So.
Yeah.
It's called Back of the Bus with the Boys.
So Tarzan, we have Nick Offerman on the show right now. Are you guys partnering up? What's the story? Part 8, where are we at?
Are we partnering up?
Yeah, what's the relationship there?
What can I say?
That's a great question.
I'm glad I got on here that he can sit here and help me navigate these questions.
Well, McQuarrie's here. He'll yell at you if you say step out of line. That's for sure.
Yeah, just start telling us things.
I would never. I'll just kick him out of the meeting. That's why I asked to host it. All I have to do is mute Tarzan.
Oh my God, the boys are frozen.
Tarzan, you can say whatever you feel like saying, so long as you don't spoil your own experience watching the movie.
I will say, Nick, you do give off vibes of a senior to middle management IMF director, maybe someone who's in charge.
I'll say IMF adjacent. Now this is before Ethan dies. I can say whatever I want.
Before Ethan dies.
Say whatever you want.
was hacking.
Oh my God.
The syndicate hacked in.
The boys are back. The troublemakers
The boys are back.
Yes.
Boy bus. I'm playing the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The president in part
Oh no.
needs to get her cabinet together to make some table arguing over a rather apocalyptic end to the world is imminent, and we're all kind of fighting over by which method we want to see it.
Okay, here we go.
Is that its own weapon?
Are we back?
We're back.
You're back.
Okay, here we go. We got
This
some
is
good
pure
reception. It's
chaos.
up a little bit longer. Yeah.
Now,
so I was feeling all the things.
when you want to kill spoilers in your podcast, just bring in the cast from Top Gun.
Tarzan, we were about to get some really good stuff out of Nick.
You're
and
ruining this for us.
You came in, so yeah.
He's frozen again. But Tarzan, if you can hear us, your frozen frame is gorgeous.
Was he about to spill some stuff?
He was spilling.
Yeah.
He was spilling. No, he was. Yeah, I think he was being. I think Nick, you were being appropriately general. No.
He probably knows more than me, so I can't even spoil anything. I have not received a piece of paper yet. So he probably is you're asking the wrong person for information.
It is true that Nick actually knows. I can say this for sure. Nick not only knows more about part 2 than Tarzan, but
Okay.
Nick also knows more about the sequence he's in than anybody else he's in the room with.
Mm.
Okay. Who else are you in the room with?
Well, the President of the United States, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, Kittredge, I think Ebenezer Kittredge, the head of the CIA.
Eugene Kittredge.
Eugene.
Ebenezer.
But that was wishful thinking because Shea Wiggum is Jasper Briggs, which is a name I'm crazy about. And then Mark Gatiss they're called NSA and DNI. Mark Gatiss and Charles Parnell, Department of National Intelligence and National Security Advisor.
Yes, National Security and the Director of National Intelligence.
And any actors you want to be able to reveal?
Sure. I mean, Mark Gatiss, Charles Parnell, who plays Warlock in Top Gun, another crossover. The magnificent Janet McHolt McElhaney is the Secretary of Defense. And then Henry Czerny, the great Canadian actor, is coming back. He was in Mission Impossible 1 as Kittredge. He returns for 7 and 8.
Wow, you are already so good at being a member of the Mission Impossible cast and keeping things secret.
Well, this is pretty much my bag, like big budget studio action fare. That's what I'm known for.
McHugh, do you want to spill any beans?
Yeah. Wait. He brought up the name Jasper Briggs, which is the Shea Wiggum's character, right?
Yeah, it's funny. That's a name that has been knocking around for a million years. Giancarlo Esposito's character, Jack Bear, was originally Jasper Briggs in Usual Suspects. And it was a character I had envisioned, which was in my younger, far more naive years, as being a character that was going to carry over through several movies. And so I changed the name when I was doing Suspects, and I changed it to the name of a dear friend's father who had passed away not long. That's where Jack Bear came from. And so it was one of those names. It was like Walker's name in Fallout. August Walker was the name of someone I knew, and I pulled those names out of a hat, thinking I would eventually change them, and eventually they just became part of the story.
But Briggs is obviously a loaded last name in MI mythology.
Right.
That is another name, another reason why I left it. And Briggs, the character of Dan Briggs, was going back to Rogue Nation. Early drafts of Rogue Nation was a character from the IMF's past who resurfaced. He was a guy who had disappeared years before and came. There were a lot of ideas like that, especially early on, where you play with those ideas and they sound fun and they actually end up becoming either quite burdensome or they become a little bit that you find yourself going out of your way to stick the landing on those things and make those points work. And so I don't chase them as much anymore. There is one character in the movie whose name will, because the funny thing is about Shea's character, I don't think anybody's even said his name out loud on screen in all the time we've been shooting these movies. So I could change his name to Mark Twain tomorrow and it wouldn't disrupt the movie.
I feel like Nick should say Jasper or something. Yeah.
I love the name Jasper. When I was a kid, my dad, who was a great disciplinarian, from the front seat of the Suburban with a 3-speed on the tree, if I was mouthing off, he would just say, "Dummy up back there, Jasper." And so I always Jasper was always my Huck Finn. Like he was the mischief, the alter ego that was mischievous is my Jasper. So I'm a fan.
McQuarrie, do you want to tell us who Nick will be playing scenes with?
He is currently in scenes with the actors he has listed. He's in the.
Okay, well, we know all those people. I'm trying to get some news.
He is in a location. He is in an undisclosed location with the president's cabinet, and as he said, is in the stakes of this movie, the stakes of part 2, really starting at the fuse kind of starts at the beginning of part 1. The stakes are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger over the course of the 2 movies, and the second movie they're at an absolute fever pitch, and you're taken all the way to you find yourself in the corridors of power with this people making very high level decisions, and it plays into other movies that Erik and I love and are the kind of movies they don't make anymore. I mean, when you look at Top Gun, we were talking about Top Gun at the beginning of this. The big thing for me about Top Gun is that it contains the spirit of all those movies I really love and got to watch growing up. And it was that for a long time, it was kind of like those are the movies you'd emulate or try to borrow little things from. And it doesn't really, there were little touches of 3 Days to the Condor and the Parallax View in Rogue Nation, but they were kind of nods and winks. It was very different to look at those movies and say, all right, I want to make a movie I want to make that movie. I want to make a movie like that, but that isn't that. I want to make my version of that kind of movie. Instead of winking at the movies I love, I'm gonna meet it head on. And I feel like we did that with Top Gun. We looked at the original Top Gun and said, what would I do if I was doing Top Gun? And I want to be able. So there are movies that really inspired this movie that we just leaned right into and said, let's make these nobody's making movies like this anymore. Let's make one and really go all in on it. And that's what you're going to get particularly from part 2.
Nick, were you a fan of these movies already before signing on?
I was. I mean, I'm a woodworker where most of my contemporaries are cineasts, and I love that about actors that have encyclopedic knowledge of films and actors and so forth. And my knowledge is very selective. I also know a lot of theater stuff, but there are huge gaps in my knowledge. But I have always really loved this franchise, and it was especially a gas once I got to London to watch 1 through 6 all in a row, and
wow,
and become reacquainted with the mythos and with the whole gang, and which made it especially poignant then when I take out Benji, which I mean. I'm still wondering if somebody's going to pull somebody's face off in that circumstance, but I think it's a baller move, and I think it's time to freshen up the squad.
Yeah, they need to be thinned out a little. Since you watched the first 6, we ask everyone who comes on this show, and if we don't talk to you again for another 2 years, I've got to ask, can you rank the movies?
Oh boy, I couldn't give you a comprehensive ranking because I'm very good at watching movies as an audience member, by which I mean I turn off my analytical side because as soon as I get into, like, if Ethan is flying in a squirrel suit or whatever, and if I even begin to think, Jesus Christ, who is shooting this? And how there's so many how and whys, and instead I have to let myself go. I feel like, and I'm not a blower of smoke, but I feel like far and away the Asian stunt player in that bathroom fight, whose name I don't know,
Liang Yang.
That is just one of the most incredible fight scenes. But the suspense with the whole sequence with the helicopters at the end with Tom and Henry is just bonkers. And once again, as I'm like, barely able to peek through the hands covering my face, at the same time I'm thinking, oh my God. And Rob Hardy is an old friend of mine, and so I'm just thinking, where is Video Village in a situation like this? and where are they shooting this? So I mean, I honestly couldn't give. I'd probably just say I'd rank them in order chronologically, with 6 at the top and
wow,
and one at the bottom. But there's a lot of ignorance in that stance.
Not considering who you're on the call with.
No, it's not. Like I said, I'm not one to blow smoke. I'll happily deliver criticism, but I'm too much of a farmer to come up with a discerning criticism.
Do you have a preference on Tom Cruise's hair?
No, it's all dreamy, and I said to McHugh the other day,
dreamy.
He was doing a monologue many times with all the skill. It's as though we might as well have been watching him achieve a decathlon in the Olympics. Like the chops that he was bringing to delivering this information to the group of people we were with. I said to McHugh that I felt like I was in a much sought after college course called Heroic 101. And I mean, whatever his hair is doing, he's just so masterful at making, if you're human, you're going to fall in love with that guy and think, I feel like everything is terrifying, but if he's here, we're going to be okay.
Exactly.
Ethan will save me.
So Tom Cruise's hair now is longer. Speaking of his hair, it looks like you've been shooting with his hair longer, and it's very short for 7.
Mhm.
So is there a time jump between 7 and 8, or some kind of time jump in the middle of 8 or something? Can you tell us anything about?
That's an interesting question you're asking, which I will get to right after our next guest, who is Mark Gatiss, who's jumping in.
Oh.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Yes, I'm in Chichester. This is the men's dressing room of the play I directed, which has its final performance tonight. So I've come down to see them.
Wow.
Briefly having time off.
So Mark was nice enough to slip away and come join us from the backstage of the play he has directed. And
Wow.
This is Charles and Drew.
Hello.
And Mark is also in the room. We were just telling you about. Nick was tiptoeing around. He was tiptoeing around the story just as you walked in, Mark.
Well, you tell me what it's about.
Well, Mark, did you ever think you would be sharing a scene with Nick Offerman?
Oh, no. Well, that was a delightful surprise, obviously. It's all a delightful surprise. Last year, Indira Varma I've known for many years. In fact, I first worked at Long Cross Studios with her 17 years ago. So that was a great surprise. And this year, Janet McTeer I've known for very many years. But Nick, I just couldn't believe it was him, actually. So, but I don't know why we're even talking, because I'm not allowed to say anything, am I? That's the nature of the piece.
Why don't you try to say something, Mark, and we'll see if McQuarrie yells at you.
Mark, just have fun being evasive. That's all we do on this podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think, was Janet McTeer announced for this movie yet?
She's not. That's another announcement you're getting exclusively on your.
Hey, there we go.
I'm glad it's not live. We're not live, are we?
No, we're not live. Is she the president?
We're not live, but that is she. That I will not say.
Well, I can exclusively reveal I am a human man in it.
Whoa, Mark! Whoa!
Yeah, I know. Steady the bump.
Actually, your role has been disclosed, Mark. Mark is
Right.
is the head of the NSA, and he is also the in Mission 7. In Part 1, he is the head of the NSA, and in Part 2, he is the National Security Advisor. Everybody gets a little bit of promotion from one movie to another.
Sounds like there is a time jump then.
Yeah, can we get back to that time jump question with the hair?
Well, I mean, obviously, it takes some time for hair to grow. It'd be pretty hard to deny that there is some transition of time between two movies.
It's a period of grieving, I'll say that.
Whoa! Period of grieving.
Yeah, after I take Benji out. I'm going to hand off the baton to my esteemed friend Mark, and but I will say I'm such a big fan of his, and I was so tickled to get to work with him, especially from Sherlock and the Favorite and The Father, and so watching him deliver dialogue under McHugh's meticulous adjustments has been like watching a first chair violinist rip off beautiful riffs.
You're too kind.
I am very grateful to have met you guys, and I'll look forward to the forthcoming episodes.
Thank you so much, Nick.
So nice to meet you, Nick.
Thank you. Cheers.
See you Monday, maybe.
Okay.
Whoa! I can't help but notice, in the scene seemingly in the first movie that you guys are all in, Cary Elwes is also there. I have not heard his name brought up in relation to 8. Do we want to shed any light on that? Is he not coming back?
He's doing. I can exclusively
reveal. There are lots of names we haven't.
Wait a minute, Mark Gatiss is about to exclusively reveal something. Go ahead.
It's Gatiss, but it's Gatiss.
Gatiss, sorry, I'm sorry.
Cary is doing the cartoon version of The Princess Bride. Do you remember the Jacksons cartoon? So he's kind of overcommitted. I think that's what's happening.
I can tell you that there are several characters in Part 1 who do not appear in Part 2, not for any other reason than very complicated, the complicated world of when things are going. They are casualties of a post-pandemic production calendar than anything else. So one should not assume simply because one does not hear one's name, anybody can appear anywhere.
Okay. You have so many secrets, Mark. Do you have to keep inside? What is that like? Is it eating you alive?
No, I'm so used to it. I can't tell you. It's like this is a walk in the park, because I remember going. Graham Norton, the
Of course.
chat show host. Yeah, Graham. I was on Graham's radio show so many times over the years about Doctor Who and Sherlock in particular, and I was never able to say anything. And I remember one day he just kind of went, "Oh, Jesus Christ!" Everything was so opaque. So this is really very straightforward for me.
Well, and also, but on Sherlock, don't you guys, I would imagine, keep that pretty much under wraps, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was all hints and clues. Except the funny thing was, some of it was like, this is a 120-year-old spoiler. Sherlock dies, 120-year-old spoiler. Mrs. Watson dies, 120-year-old spoiler. So that was easier. Yeah. But no, this is because so much of it is a great surprise to us. That's also a joyous part of the proceedings,
And to me, because we were, it's that kind of thing. We go into this with ambitions more than plans, and we had an entirely different vision for what and who would be in that room, knowing that Mark would be there, knowing that certain characters would come back, expecting others to come back who couldn't, just because things went on so long and they had other commitments. And that's the nature of what we do on these movies. We just kind of, we roll with it.
Is that a new working style for you, Mark? As you're obviously a classically trained actor, you're directing plays, and now
there's a certain element. I mean, obviously, having done it last year, I knew what was going on, and it's been very interesting seeing some new people for whom it is a total surprise, being a little sort of startled by it. But I think once you go with it, I've said this already, but I find it extremely liberating, because rather than the massive pressure of here's this 12-page scene or something that everyone wants to get right first time and make it the ideal take, you can actually make it more fluid. And weirdly, sort of conversely, the closer the camera comes to you, the more relaxing it is, because it's so minute. You could just kind of go, I'll just do that again. Can I just do 3 different versions of that line and stuff like that? And I find that very liberating, actually. It's very different, but it's once you get used to it, it's actually rather relaxing.
I'm glad you think so. I'm glad. I always wonder who privately wants to punch my lights out.
I know that's an entirely separate issue. The punching. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. Yes, exactly. That's more to do with my personal opinions. But it's always the same thing. I never mean to be evasive when we talk about this stuff. It's not me trying to be glib. It's me saying, I can tell you something, and then everybody could grab onto that, and that could become the narrative on the internet. And then by the time we get to the movie, it's the truck and the helicopter shot from Fallout. It's not there anymore.
Yeah.
There are scenes where Tom and I will be shooting something, and we'll turn to one actor or another and say, "Don't worry about any of this. We're gonna reshoot all this." Just like we know we're still figuring this out. And then there are other things you just feel rooted. Mark can tell you, when the cast walked in, the scene was 14 pages long, and it was exposition, and it was kind of a blueprint for what the scene evolved into. And for the first 2 days of rehearsal, we'd read the scene with them a little while. They'd come to work the next day, and there would be a newly rewritten version that we would rehearse. And then the next day, there would be yet another rewritten version that was getting tighter and leaner and clearer. And only then do we start shooting it. And then it evolves yet again as actors make discoveries, and we find out what they're in a big exposition scene. They're in a scene that's kind of setting up the stakes of the movie. How do you turn that into character? How do you avoid plot and make this about who's in the room instead of what they're saying? And that's a very elusive process.
Mark, you like Tom Cruise's hair long or short?
This is a question they ask a lot, Mark. This is a.
They've got nothing else to go on except hair.
Well, I mean,
what else are we going to talk about?
There's a little red dot that appears on our foreheads. Yeah, but we are very interested in it. Yeah.
I rather like it long, I have to say. I like it long. And I have to say, I'm not just saying this because he's paying me, although he is paying me an awful lot. He looks really pretty amazing at the moment. I mean, for a man who's just turned 60, people didn't used to look like that when they were 60. I remember that.
No, they did
My
not.
God, he looks amazing. And he's...
I read a thing recently that Jon Voight was 58 in the first Mission Impossible.
Yes.
Wow. Oh, this is good news, I hope, for us. That we,
For sure.
He's never 90, is he? I look over
now.
I
think we have a return engagement here. Hold on.
Okay.
Here comes Tarzan, and I think they're in a better place now.
All right.
There we go. Hey, Glenn, good to see you again.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Good.
Looking sharp, bro.
We're on with this is the real $1 Billion Boys Club right here.
I like that.
Yeah.
$1 billion boys.
Yeah.
Starting a barbershop. Wait, there's a
quartet too.
Yeah, I guess.
Where's the fourth?
Jay's
Jay.
Jay.
There it is. Right
He's
there.
getting married right now.
Yeah. Tell him congratulations for us, obviously.
They're in the middle of their vows right now, so we're not going to interrupt that.
We're waiting for that.
Yeah.
I came here for the open bar. Yeah.
We've got Mark on the phone. Tarzan, are you in any scenes with him in 7 or 8? Can you say?
Mark's story and Tarzan's story, for very specific reasons, Tarzan's story does not intersect with Mark and Nick's story at all.
Okay.
There we go.
Glenn and Danny, has Tarzan told you anything about Mission Impossible?
Yes.
Yeah, he's quite a lot, actually.
Everything. Honestly,
he comes back for notes.
Guys,
gives
it's
the notes to
open book.
McHugh. I give the notes to McHugh and Eddie and tell them how to, do their thing. But he's basically like, oh, this is a story point that I was just pitched. Like, should I accept it? And he bounces it off of us, and we're like, yeah, it was pretty good.
We all stay in the same Airbnb, and he really talks a lot in his sleep. So we got
Exactly.
Is it too late to get these other guys into the movie, McQuarrie? Come on. I think Glenn and Danny would be great.
Well, it's never too late. But, the question is, who do I have to bump out of the movie to make room for them? So maybe we'll.
Yeah. So the answer is no.
Maybe you guys.
The answer is no.
They ain't bumping me out. They're not bumping me out. Well, I've already volunteered. Like, if they need a dead extra at some point, that I'm so down.
Yeah.
Fly in and do just a cameo.
What if even just on the board of like dead IMF agents, we're just like, it's like killed, and we're just one of those.
I would love that.
That would eliminate your chances of future Mission Impossible adventures.
Wow, that sounds promising, man.
But just because you're dead,
you're right.
you
You
can't
can always
come
come
back.
back.
Yeah.
Hasn't Ethan been dead like 7
Yeah,
times?
McQuarrie, you always say that no one's ever really dead.
Yeah, that's what the masks are for.
That is true. No one is ever really dead. Yes.
Yeah.
Although we try to keep moving forward. There was going to be a flashback with Hunley at the beginning of 7. It was in there for a long, long time. We were going to start the story with, dipping into the past, and there definitely is a vein of the story that delves into the past. And we were going to go back there and do it. And it was one of those things, it was a scene I was really excited about. And it was one of those things that just fell out of the story. In fact, funny enough, many of the scenes that are in this movie are scenes that have fallen out of other movies and found their way back in a really weird way. So who knows?
Do you guys have a favorite Mission Impossible movie?
Actually, the day that I was sort of trying to figure out, whenever I was kind of deciding whether I was going to do Top Gun or not, the morning that I talked to Tom and McHugh was the morning that Mission Impossible Fallout came out. And I literally, they called me. I knew that they were going to call me, but they called me as I was walking into Fallout. And I said, guys, can I call you back? I'm about to go see your movie. And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. So then I called them after the movie, and I got to geek out with them for I don't know how long we talked to McHugh, but I picked your brain for a long time about how much I loved that movie. It was the most exciting.
I was just relieved that you called back after seeing the movie. He said, I'm going to see Fallout. I thought, oh well, we're not going to hear from that guy.
Yeah. No, I mean that's what a way to sell Top Gun Maverick after you see Fallout, which is I think one of the most invested I've ever been in any action movie ever, and it's just a wish fulfillment of why you go to the movies, and the team on that is incredible, and that's one of the reasons that, Top Gun Maverick really sinks. People who are entertaining audiences and, keeping people invested at this level is just, you just never see it anymore. But this brain trust is just so strong.
Glenn, did I read correctly that you actually turned down Top Gun Maverick initially?
I did turn down Top Gun Maverick initially, but again, one of the reasons.
Baller move, Glenn.
Was that? Oh, we gotta go. The
wedding.
Bring us in.
Alex is really starting.
We'll talk to you guys later.
I can't wait.
Give our best to Jay.
Thank you for having us. Congratulations, 200, baby.
200.
Thank you.
Bye.
Dead body. At some point.
Dead body.
I've got to go, guys. I've got to see.
Go, Mark. Thank you so much for
Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm sorry I couldn't tell you more, but one day, perhaps.
One day, yeah.
Okay, take care.
Right.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.
Well, McQuarrie, time jump. Let's talk.
Yeah, wait.
Talk about it.
Okay. I've thrown all the guests I can at you to try to. These are like ninja smoke bombs I'm throwing down to try and avoid answering questions.
Wait, how about Glen Powell turning you down, right? Didn't he the story was he turned it down so that and then the role, kind of the character, he wanted more from it or something? Do you have what's your side of that story?
I'm everything I'm telling you is kind of as I understand it, not what I was expressly told, but it's my understanding that he had been up for the role of Rooster, as had other people, and I think he was just very disappointed when he didn't get it. And they still wanted to be in the movie, and they wanted him to be Hangman, but Hangman wasn't the role on paper that it ultimately became. So right around the time I came on board, because I really came onto it very late because I was working on Fallout. So I really only came in probably at about a month before production, and typical of the stuff I do with Tom, like Edge of Tomorrow, when I come in late, we look at the script, we have one conversation that blows up everything, and we start over from scratch. And it was very similar. I was in a very similar situation as I was with Emily Blunt on Edge of Tomorrow, where right as I finished Jack Reacher, Tom called me up and he said, "Hey, would you go meet with Emily, talk to her about Edge of Tomorrow, and kind of reassure her?" Because the script, it wasn't there. What we imagined for the role was not there. So I just had a long conversation with Glenn that was more about our process and that it's one of discovery, and we don't write roles and then go looking for the actor. We cast an actor and we find the role in who that actor is. And what you're looking at with Phoenix and Bob and the Hangman and all those guys is I just sat in a room very early on and listened to them. Just listened to their voices while they were reading through a script that I knew we were going to write almost from scratch and develop characters around them. Same thing went for John Hamm. John Hamm was also, I think, a little bit reluctant to be in the movie. I think he just didn't, I just don't think he knew what the character was. There just wasn't any there. And so it was my job to call those people and say, "Hey, just don't worry about that. Here's the process. Here's how we do things. And this is what I have in mind for the character. This is kind of where I think it's going to go." That's a very delicate dance because you also don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So Glenn was just in the end, he was very trusting. And he shared a great anecdote about talking to Tom. And Tom said, he was being very frank with Tom about not wanting to be in the movie. And Tom said, "Well, Glenn, what kind of career do you want?" And Glenn said, "I want your career." And he said, "Well, how do you think I got here, Glenn?" And he said, "You chose great roles." And he said, "No, Glenn, I chose good movies." And I looked at the people I was working with. I looked at my collaborators, and now I'm really paraphrasing. Essentially, what Tom does is, the Edge of Tomorrow was not Edge of Tomorrow on the page. He saw the potential for that concept, and a 120-page document that gives people enough encouragement to start moving around resources and building sets and moving things around. So be it. What really matters is what you find along the way, and not to get stuck on what a concept is just because, well, that was the plan and we're sticking to it. We're always in the process of discovering more interesting things as we go. And without anything to draw on, no experience with us to draw on, Glenn and John took a real leap of faith. Miles had a relationship with Joe. Jen had a relationship with Joe. Some of the other actors, and particularly Glenn and John Hamm, they had no frame of reference at all. I knew John a little. We had mutual friends, and so there was some trust there. But for Glenn, it was a giant leap of faith.
I saw Glenn last weekend, and he was very complimentary about how he had been, helped along the way on this journey of discovering this character, and how he'd been directed on set. And when he saw the film, he could totally understand, because I think sometimes the actors give a wide variety of options on the set, and sometimes at the end of that they're just thinking to themselves, how is this going to come together? Like, what direction are they going to take this sequence in? And then when he saw the scenes, he was just so happy and thrilled and blown away. And you get so much from very little distilled pieces of Hangman through the movie, which is all credit to how Chris kind of wrote the script and built those sequences. Some of the training sequences are so well designed by Chris on the page. And I remember when he presented the concept of the training sequence cutting back to the tack room, the classroom, during the training sequence. So you would just have this really nice juxtaposition of teaching and then action and stakes and character. And I remember just thinking, damn, that is so good. And it's a lot of work to get it to flow, obviously. But I remember thinking when Chris pitched that, if this lands and this really works well, it'll be such a nice change of pace to the other sequences. It's so clever how that was written on the page. I remember it's terrifying as an editor, because there's so many ways you can put stuff like that together. But when it all kind of landed and clicked into place and worked, and we kept working at it for months, obviously. But I remember when we got that sequence working, it was a real joy to feel it all kind of playing in smoothly and working well. And Glen Powell was very complimentary about that when I saw it.
Everybody is so good in the movie.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. McQuarrie, you want to talk about who else is really good in your movies coming up that maybe people don't know about? Yeah.
Let's see. Well, who have we spilled some... I'll tell you who you... I cannot wait for you to see... obviously, you guys have talked to Haley on the 100th episode, right? Mm-hmm. I'm really excited for you to see Pom Klementieff and what she brings to it. She's an absolute rock star, real professional, and an incredibly dedicated. And you'd see little bits of that in the trailer. I think she's a force to be reckoned with. She's really incredible. Is there anybody else we haven't covered, Eddie? Oh. There's one yet to be announced.
Yes.
Role with whom we have yet to work, and it was something of a coup, and I'm very excited for you to see that.
Is that a new cast member or a returning cast member, or?
I'm gonna let this one sit. I'm just very, very excited about it.
You're killing us.
I was writing for this character today. There's a sequence. There's a journey in the story. There's a journey in part 2 that the characters go on, and it's kind of it's just the journey in and of itself. It's almost a quest movie, and it's but without losing the spirit of it being Mission Impossible. And it's there is a returning character from Fallout who's returning in a delightfully unexpected way.
In part 1 or 2 or both?
Kind of an Easter egg in part 1, and then in full force in part 2.
You want to tell us any of this stuff, or are we just gonna?
No, I want you to be pleasantly surprised, and I want you to be. Yeah, it's like I said, you will be pleasantly surprised.
Well, okay, but things we can talk about. I'm going to go back to Top Gun Maverick quickly, because I
keep asking questions, and I'll tell you stuff I can tell you. What we do, our whole process is about not making choices until we absolutely have to, because once you commit, that's it. It kind of becomes cast in stone. And so it's, believe me, you're just as in the dark as my department heads or anybody else.
But you do have a new cast member that
what's actually going to happen in this location? There's a particular location, and I said, I don't even know if that location is going to be in the movie, only because you never lose sight of the fact, and it's very easy to do this when you're making movies. It's very easy to lose sight of the fact of, why am I in that location in the first place? Am I really in there because it absolutely needs to be, or am I there because of some idea we came up with years ago? And if I took out this one moment, would I really need to move my entire crew to that other country to shoot this sequence? And Erik and I were breaking story today, and I just said, we've been holding on to this one big location in our movie for a really long time. And I said, we're only in this city for this one moment because of this one setting in this city. And if I took that out, would it really change the whole movie that much? Right? Could I find the same emotions from that moment somewhere else and put it into a place we're already going? So that's why I'm not, I'm just like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that that's absolutely going to happen. And I always want to be very careful. We live in a world in which the crazy speculation that people have drawn from things. That I'm so fascinated by the fascination with the guy, the silver-haired man in the mask, I believe you called him. Because some people were asking me, what kind of mask is Kittredge wearing in the trailer? I didn't know what the hell that meant. I was like, what? Because I think mask and I think Mission Impossible. It's a mask gag, right? So I was like, who thought Kittredge was wearing a mask? It took me the longest time to think that, oh, they thought that actor was Kittredge and that Kittredge was wearing some kind of mask. I can't wait for you to see that scene. If that scene ends up in the movie, it'll be awesome. There's a world in which you could lift that scene from the movie and then people will be saying, whatever happened to that guy in the mask?
But you did cast this new actor or actress, and you're just not telling us because you don't like us, I guess.
I have cast,
you're gonna tell the Empire podcast next week, maybe? I don't know.
I've cast two different characters that I'm not telling you about. Yeah. In fact, I cast a third actor the other day that I'm so excited about. And the scene involving the actor is so tenuous. I'm reluctant to say this person is coming because I'm very much it's a specific scene and it's a specific moment and one we haven't shot yet. So it could end up being something that conceptually gets turned on its head in a minute, because Erik and I are right now as we speak working on that segment of the movie. What I can tell you about part 2 is we know more about part 2 than any other mission I've worked on. There is more concrete story structure. The basic ideas are all there. The things that are vague are not things I'm scared about. There is a sequence so big in the movie, we're still trying to figure out how to actually physically execute. So a new irony has arisen in which I know exactly what the middle act of our movie is. I don't know how physically to achieve it.
Wow. Well,
I could pitch you that whole sequence. I could describe it to you in detail, and then you won't see it in the movie because we couldn't figure out how to do it.
You're talking about how 8 is more figured out than the other ones. So the trades ran with a story that this was the last of Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible, the last of the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movies. Is that the case? Is Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Part 2, is that the end for Ethan Hunt?
Well, let me tell you about look, I have been working with Tom Cruise for 15 years, and I cannot tell you the number of times I have been standing next to the man, witnessed an event, and then read about it in the trades the next day, and none of what they described was actually true. I'll tell you a story. We were in Birmingham shooting a scene, which I'm pretty confident will be in the movie, between Tom and Haley. the next day, I read an article in the paper that Tom and 4 other guests went out to dinner at an Indian restaurant in Birmingham, which is quite famous for its Indian food. And I read that Tom insisted on sitting at a table, not in a private room, but in the main restaurant with the other diners, that Tom ordered 3 orders of chicken tikka masala because he liked it so much, and he and the guests ate 3 of these orders. That on the way out of the restaurant, Tom stopped and talked to other people in the restaurant, took photos with them, and signed autographs, and was very, very gracious. When I called Tom the next day and I said, "There's something weird about this article," and he said, "What?" I said, "It's 100% factually correct." It's actually the first time I've actually read an article about you in which everything in it happened exactly as it was written. Does the editor get fired for this? Like, what happened? So when I read them saying that Mission was going to be, they were going to be shot concurrently, and then we decided not to do that. And when you read articles in the trades, just put the imaginary words in front of the headline. The agenda is. And when you read anonymous sources close to the production say, that's somebody putting that out there for a specific reason. Somebody wants people thinking that for whatever reason they want, and you can never know for sure what those reasons are, and you just learn to kind of ignore it and laugh at it, because in today's world, you just wait 17 minutes and another news cycle will sweep it away.
Speaking of Tom, do you remember what you said on the 100th episode?
What was that?
We said, when's
I
Tom?
don't remember what I said 30 minutes ago.
You said that on the 200th, you'd bring in old standby Tom Cruise, and here we are, 200 episodes. And...
Tom is at Wimbledon right now.
Oh God,
that's your problem. You're competing with Wimbledon,
enjoying his day off. Ugh, boring.
You can Zoom from the crowd at Wimbledon.
I'll have you know, Tom is at Wimbledon with my wife, having a great time at Wimbledon. I'm here with Erik working on the script for Mission Impossible.
Well, we haven't talked about the titles yet.
Ah, yes.
The forum is yours.
So the title. What is the title this week, Eddie?
It's cool. The title, Chris, you actually proposed. I'm thinking like way back. Like it was a suggested title a long way back, wasn't it? And
yes,
I loved it the moment you said it. But you always have to let these things percolate for a while. But I love that title.
I think you told us that you wanted it to be part 1 and part 2 of some. You didn't tell us what the title was, but thought
he knew the title when he said
right.
that.
Anyway, I think it was yeah. So what was that process like?
Well, I knew the title applied when I came up with the title. I knew it applied more to part 2 than it did to part 1, which is why it eventually settled on being a part 1 and part 2. There was nearly the title for the first movie was nearly a title that referred to something like a Ghost Protocol kind of thing. It was a government policy. It wasn't a government policy. It was a government, what would you call it? A government measure of last resort with catastrophic consequences. And Simon Pegg and Ving Rhames have this great scene in part 1 where they describe, if this thing happens, here's the catastrophic consequences of this event. And it would have been a cool title for part 1. By the time we got to the end of part 1, it was like that had distilled down into an entirely different set of circumstances that appear in part 2 and not in part 1. So the word would no longer have been appropriate for the title of part 1. And yet Dead Reckoning didn't really apply to part 1 as well as it did to part 2 until we started to play with the beginning of the movie and kind of recognized that the Dead Reckoning, while it sounded cool, what did it have to do thematically with the movie? And over the course of our really starting to dig down into the arc of the character journey for Ethan, it took on deeper and deeper meanings as we went. So it's very unusual in that, in my experiences, Ghost Protocol was always Ghost Protocol. It was Ghost Protocol when I came on board. Rogue Nation was something we came up along the way and then wrote a line of dialogue that contained it. Fallout was something that came very late in the process. And like Rogue Nation was a term I threw out there, and it was met with kind of an uncomfortable silence. It wasn't, nobody went, ooh, I love that title. It's just that when you put the title you like up against all the other titles that are being suggested, which tend to be awful, eventually, Rogue Nation's not so bad. And then when you say the title for a couple of days, it just becomes the title, and eventually that's just what it is. And now I can't imagine Fallout being called something other than Fallout. There was a lot of apprehension around that because of the video game and because of there was a lot of stuff like that. Dead Reckoning was like that. It was a title we kept talking about, and it was a bit of a placeholder. And then it started to become something that I was writing to. And now it's unimaginable that it would be called anything else. And you'll see just how thematic and how it represents, it's conceptually represented in every character's journey in the story.
Well, it's a nautical term, right? Eric, do you want to talk about that as our nautical expert?
It is a nautical term, and it really refers to a method of navigation that's based on whence you came. It's navigating based on where you last were and best guess. But what we've found.
Erik has just given you so much of the movie.
Oh my God! and also we realized that it has really actually multiple meanings if you really take apart the phrase and consider other meanings for Dead Reckoning besides the nautical.
What I'm so excited about is that the term is obvious. It has both, you see a submarine in the trailer. It has both obvious literal nautical references in the story, but it also, the notion of navigation, both literal and metaphorical, the notion of reckoning, both literal and metaphorical, all play into the story. And it's one of those things that kind of blows my mind, because when I first announced Esai Morales in the story, somebody we haven't really talked about, Henry Cerny in the story, somebody we really haven't talked about, that Esai, when I published a photo of Esai with the caption, "We all share the same fate," I had ideas for what that character was and what that line might mean, but I also knew I was taking an enormous risk because that might not apply. It really applies. And Henry Cerny's character and what he brings to it, and the notions of the past coming back, it all plays into this story that really, what I love about what we've come to do in our process, and Eddie can speak to this as well, when we reach for it, when we try to achieve something, we tend not to get there, or we get there and it's kind of like not what we wanted. When we just put it out there, when we just say, this is the feeling we want to achieve, and don't chase after it, just put it out there and aspire to it, it tends to become a reality, and become a reality in a way that's far more organic and less contrived. And these two movies, combined with the pandemic, really, and the disruptiveness of the pandemic, all tend to come together to achieving things you want. Like, I don't know, maybe getting Tom Cruise to come on your podcast.
What?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Heather.
Hi.
That's my wife, Heather, who's been at Wimbledon. Hi, hon.
Oh, hi. What's going on over there?
Oh, we're just recording our 200th episode, bothering your husband for the 900th time.
And we're talking to Charles and Drew, and they were lamenting that on the 100th episode, they had been asking if I could get Tom to come on for the 200th episode.
Oh, did you have any luck reaching him?
They know that you're at Wimbledon with Tom.
Oh.
Hey guys, how are you?
Oh my God!
Wow.
What?
Oh my word.
is happening?
Tom Cruise, how are you?
I'm great, man. How are you guys?
Good. Did you have any idea this podcast existed before 5 minutes ago?
Yes, and thank you guys. Thank you so much. Really, I love it.
Oh my God,
I love it. What you guys do, and we really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun.
Oh well, we do it all for you, and to a slightly lesser degree, McQuarrie. So yeah.
But I have to tell you, we do it all for you. That's what I want you to know. We do it for you.
Well, mission accomplished on that front. How is everything going? Give us an update here.
It's going really well. Very excited about the next two missions, and we're filming kind of both of them right now at the same time. It's been quite an adventure, as it has been, and we're just enjoying it. Got a great cast. It's obviously, I know McHugh's told you, like, we've taken the franchise to a place that we always wanted to earn, on the kind of scale and emotion and character and where it's evolved to. So we're really excited about it. Really excited.
Wow.
Still in the thick of it, but very excited. We had shot a great scene this past week with this cast that's, you just look at them, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so talented.
Well, speaking of
I'm just interested in the characters they're creating.
We had Nick Offerman and Mark Gatiss on earlier, and Tarzan crashed with he's at Jay's wedding with Glen and Danny. So we had a crossover episode of Light the Fuselage.
Who's at Jay's wedding? Is it Jay, Glen, and Danny there? Or what about Monica and Miles? Were they there?
I think they are there. I just know that Tarzan he was driving in with Glen and Danny when we called. So Charles and Drew are very, very patient in our excessively evasive answers to questions.
Speaking of thick, Tom, your hair looks great in this new one, and we're obsessed. We're obsessed with the length, and we.
Let me tell you something. Drew cannot. It's his go-to question to every guest on this podcast. What do you think of Tom's hair?
Yes. We asked people to rank your haircuts from the Mission Impossible movies. So we're gonna have to ask you to do the same.
I know. I feel the pressure. I like to leave that to you guys. And luckily, there's moments where when we finished our first phase of MI7, where it shut down and allowed me to just grow my hair, and then I showed up, and we were all like, "Oh, this kind of works for 8." And so we're just keeping it. We're going with it.
It's funny. We were all. It's first of all, I think this is. I'm gonna give you my ranking. I think it's the coolest Tom's hair has looked in any Mission Impossible movie.
Well, in that CinemaCon footage, woo, it was looking great. Let me tell you. And the plane blowing in the wind, woo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that plane. That was fun. That was fun. That plane is fun, guys.
Yeah, they just so you are aware, they did that, I think, like 12 times over 3 days to get that exact take right. Yeah.
That was
we were filming all day.
Eddie Hamilton was there. Eddie Hamilton was actually directing that shot. Yep. He was in the heli.
Yes, he was in the helicopter.
Wow.
We shot it one way, then we went back and looked at it. We're like, that didn't work. So we were shooting all day, and then when the light wasn't good for us for the film, we kind of rigged that so we could go and shoot that in the afternoon for the studio. We said, look, we'll come up with these ideas. So to figure out the
drive home. That was our drive home every day.
Yes, that was our drive home.
What about that photo that McHugh shared on social media, Tom, of you falling out of a plane?
It looked like I was holding on to it. I can't give too much away because I'm not allowed to give too much away. Just because, we're making it. So.
You see how they phrase the questions, Tom. You have to be very, very careful.
They're very skilled, and I'm going to have to pay very attention to how I respond, knowing that we have next summer missions coming out, and the following summer, another mission, I think it was McHugh was like, hey, let's go. We're going to go make another mission. And McHugh said, let's make 2. I was like, oh, my gosh. Okay. Well, that sounds like an adventure. Let's do that. And then the whole world went crazy. And now we've been working on these films on missions we edited Top Gun, guys, and then working on these 2 missions for guys, how many years? 4 years?
With
4 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on Top Gun, by the way, because
Thank you.
we love it so much. Charles has seen it 4 times. I've seen it 3 times. So
That's awesome, guys. Thank you so much. It was so nice to see people back in the theaters, guys. I mean, I held it for, that time period, and it's wonderful that audiences really came out. And now look at the rest of the summer. I'm happy for theaters. I'm happy for you guys who just want to deliver. There's a little bit of pressure on that one. Took 36 years to figure it out, but luckily, right, guys?
While we have you here, I have to ask you about there have been previous incarnations of Mission Impossible movies that didn't happen, and I wanted to know, maybe you could tell me, like, as I list a couple of these ones, what would have been great about this? Like, so David Fincher was going to do Mission Impossible 3.
Well, we didn't move forward because they just, like any movie, he's so talented. It was just been very different. Like any movie, I was learning. It was the first film I ever produced. Let me take you back, which is, I'm 18 years old. I make taps. I'm basically first movie set I've ever been on. I'm studying kind of every department. We had Owen Roisman. You've got Harold Becker, Stanley Jaffe, who just produced Kramer versus Kramer, and Harold Becker. I'm working with George C. Scott, Penn, Hutton, all these guys that very skilled in every area. Great experience. And Sherry Lansing was at Fox at that point. So they all knew kind of my passion for storytelling and cinema. And then as years went on, I just thought, if I can do this the rest of my life, I'd be so happy. And I was working on being competent and how can I develop and learn this skill? And I was always evaluating, how are movies made and why do they work? Why does one film work with the elements involved and then it doesn't work with certain elements involved? And I started to really kind of break down structure of drama and comedy. And I would go I hired CAA at that time, their young agency, and I would go and I hired them because they had like Hoffman and Newman and Scorsese, and I would go just have lists, and Sidney Pollack, and I would have lists, and I'd studied all their films, and I'd go have meetings with them. Okay. But Sherry Lansing and Stanley Jaffe, and then they went on to produce Fatal Attraction. And Sherry Lansing was and is this really amazing woman, always very gracious, always very encouraging. And when I went over to Paramount, Stanley Jaffe was running Paramount at that point, and then Sherry Lansing came in, and I was constantly being asked to produce things or direct things. I was like, I'm just developing myself. So when I did Top Gun, I had in my contract, I was in every meeting. I was in every producer meeting, and Simpson Bruckheimer were very gracious with me and really involved me in every aspect of the filmmaking and the story structure. And it's when I started to be able to sit in marketing meetings and really understand in terms of the responsibility of the studio. And then I was kind of started branching out into distribution and meeting them, and then traveling around the world, kind of understand what kind of movies that people want to see. So then we kind of come up to Sherry Lansing and Stanley Jaffe, and they're like, please come. And I was like, I'm ready to produce a movie. And I went to them, and it was a TV series. And I actually went and I said, I want to produce a movie that I feel is going to be that I'm interested in. And I feel like there's a certain art form in terms of what I want to push and how we're going to do it with suspense and, different kinds of performance. And I want to travel the world and make movies all over the whole world. So Sherry said, okay, it was a TV series, and kind of people thought, what is he thinking? A TV series? Why is he doing that? Okay. And it was really, my friends were like, what are you doing? A TV series? I thought, they don't know. I grew up, I loved the music and kind of the potential. I thought it would be very cinematic. And I actually went to Sidney Pollack first. And I asked him, he was a lifelong friend of mine. I've known him since I was 18. I met him and spent a lot of time with him when he was editing Tootsie. And I would just go and ask him about cinema, and I would interview him on cinema and choices. And then, I'd worked with him in the firm, and he was like, I don't know. I don't know how to make a movie like that. I was like, yes, you do. 3 Days of the Condor. And if you look at the firm, like some of his sequences were very naturalistic. There's just really, he understood tension and language and geography and how to shoot these things. And he didn't feel like it was in his wheelhouse. And so I kind of went back to studying different filmmakers, and I was looking at De Palma, his work. And De Palma had just done Bonfires of Vanities. And it was interesting because I went over to Spielberg's house, and I was having dinner with Steven, and De Palma was there. And he and I just started talking, and I just went back and I just again looked at all of his films. I said, no, this is what he understood about just his composition. He understood the suspense. He had a great style. So I offered him the movie and the studio at that time, because, you know, there was just different elements where it was like he had come off Bonfires and they didn't want him. And I just so I had a meeting. I set up a meeting with Sherry and I said, look, you got to trust me. And she did. And we went off, and De Palma and I developed the film for almost 2 years. And we constantly writing. The whole process of making these movies was finding these locations, developing these sequences, building character within it. And what's the story? So that's a long-winded thing, and I was finding my footing with how to make these. Cause I never was interested in making sequels. They wanted to make sequel to Top Gun before it was released. And I'm like, I don't make movies for that. I make movies because I want to learn, and I think of the audience. I want to do that. And I also was developing my own skill as a storyteller and as an actor. So with Mission, I was like, if this works, this could be interesting to be able to travel the world, which is my goal, and not just be a tourist, but I want to work in that culture with people and to have a story and celebrate the geography of that area. So Mission Impossible, you had Amadeus that shot in Prague, and Mission Impossible at the time was the first big film to go into Prague. The wall had come down. I was like, let's go there. In England, I wanted to shoot, and we based in England. And then it just kind of developed on from there in years. And now I'm working, we did it with John Woo, which is someone I admired his films, and to see how would that feel within Mission? We were finding our footing. And then I kind of realized that you have this wonderful communication with an audience, this process with the character and the investment that they have in the character and the style as I was kind of developing it. And then JJ, I was spending time with JJ. I actually offered him to write War of the Worlds. That's where I first met him. And he was a television producer, and they'd worked on an early version of Superman. And he just had a great sense of story, and he was doing Alias. And he was very facile at being able to discuss structure. And he understood the foundation of what Mission is. Because a lot of people, and I've worked with a lot of writers, different directors on it, that never really grasp what works about the franchise. McHugh understood most definitely, not only that franchise, but just a basis of storytelling and a wide range of storytelling. He understands that with structure and tension, with suspense in a structure, you can have comedy, you can have drama. And so that's where we went. I don't know what, that's a long-winded answer to the question of what these other filmmakers are like. It just wasn't something that was, I don't know what it would have been. It wasn't kind of embracing what Mission is and wanting to embrace it in a way that you got it, how to use the theme music and how to entertain that audience with them in a way that, and I admire them. I'd love to work with them and other things, but you just go, this is something that is, having lived with it and understanding that communication with the audience, that I want to deliver on those expectations for an audience. And I'm developing my own skills as a producer, as an artist, and having that physicality to be able to bring to the screen. That's more emotional and character. Those are the things that we're always going. So I don't know what those films would have been like, really.
We did a whole episode on the Oliver Stone one where you would have been plugged into an evil computer. So I think that was probably the right choice for Mission.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know. I think he's just enormously talented. It was just stuff that you just go, it's just like anything. You're working with different writers and artists, and you're going, what is this? And as it's developing, where do we want to take it in the future? And, I've loved my working with McHugh. He and I met on Valkyrie, and it's just been exceptional experience working with him. Just an absolute, like, you read his scripts, like his ability, his sense of storytelling and logic and sense of personal adventure and willingness to never give up and explore character and story under tremendous amount of pressure that he loves, and he actually thrives on it. And we've been through, I could do about 20 podcasts talking about Chris McQuarrie and his, that sometimes bandied about word of someone who's brilliant and genius. And that's what I say about McHugh. And also just knows how to doesn't worry about when things go wrong. We have a saying, it's like pressure's a privilege, and we look at anything where it's not going the way we think it's going to go as an opportunity to take it in a way that's going to be even more exciting. And that's what you start feeling with the Mission movies, because on any film, I mean, these are what's exciting about making them is in every way, movies are tough to make just physically anyway. Okay. Now you're creating this kind of action motion. I love musicals and motion and act. And you look at how in a musical you can create such emotion so quickly, and you can do that with action and behavior. So he understands that and how to utilize that camera and that storytelling and build that action in a way that will thrill an audience and put them on the edge of their seat. And those are the things that we're looking for. You want that lightning in a bottle. But these films are so challenging to produce, so challenging to physically to make, for myself, for the crew, for everyone. And when it works out, it's beautiful. Like seeing, that's why I'm saying, like, when we're making movies, we're thinking about you and we're thinking about the audience, and we're trying to use every bit of our skills to really entertain you. And that's like, every day I'm like, I just want to make sure that I've given it my all, and it's a lot of fun.
Hence the picture of Tom hanging off of an airplane.
that was hence that, and it's just so fun.
Thank you.
And wild.
It was very kind what you said, Tom.
No, it's true, McHugh. Really.
I feel the same way.
It's true. We'we've made a wide range of films. Every film that I've worked on the past 15 years, McHugh has had a hand in, and it's kind of like this dialogue that we have, not just about our film, but about cinema, where we basically live together. Every day we go to work together, we come home together, our families are together. And it's this long dialogue about cinema and storytelling, not just on our film, but others. And it's very exciting. And I feel quite fortunate. And you too, Eddie, you're a great editor, Eddie. I'm very impressed.
Thank you very much, Tom. But it's, McHugh is the reason these movies are as good as they are. And it is a team effort. And it's a joy to collaborate with Chris and Tom, because, they just make great movies. And to be part of the process of that is such a privilege. And listen, I pinch myself every day going to work. I can't believe I'm getting to do what I do. It is such a privilege, and we're on a 4-year odyssey to make these two movies.
Yes.
We're 2 years in, and we've got 2 years to go, and I just can't wait to listen, I will tell you, McHugh is directing the hell out of these movies. They are mouth-wateringly good. Yeah. And my word, his composition and his
beautiful,
the visual storytelling is just like on another level. It is world class.
Yep.
And it's a pleasure just to watch the dailies, like the compositions. I mean, it's just so good. It's so good. The casting, the writing. It's like you're just working at the best that human beings can create with the resources that are available today. It really is. And I'm not exaggerating. It's insane to be part of this and to be invited into this process. It's a huge privilege.
Sorry, Eddie, you were frozen just now. Can you say all that again?
Yeah.
This is, as you can imagine, extremely uncomfortable for me to listen to. So.
It's all true. It's totally true.
And also the pressure that's a privilege.
Well, we
really
feel the same way, and we have spent much of this podcast talking about you, Tom, and it's funny you're saying it, because we went on a whole thing about what a privilege it is to make these movies, and how our relationship is one long conversation about movies interrupted by production.
Yeah. Yes.
And it is true. It is true. Like when we were in Africa, every morning was breakfast, talking not just about our movie and what we were doing, but talking about movies and what movies mean, and obviously everything that the business was going through over the course of the making of part one of this movie. I mean, the business was in as critical a place as I certainly in my lifetime, if not in its very long history. And that was something we took very, very seriously, that we look at this as something that is not just, it's not just something we do, it's something that a lot of people depend on, and not just for their entertainment, but a lot of people for their livelihood, things like that. We take it very, very seriously as something that you give into, not something you take from. It's not about...
Yeah, and you look at, in the last 5 weeks or 6 weeks, there's been 4 movies that have opened to over $100 million in the US.
How beautiful
that's
is that?
Never happened. I mean, it's insane.
Yes.
It's amazing.
I'm so happy for everyone.
Yeah,
I'm so happy for everyone. I'm just like, guys, it's lovely. It's lovely for audiences, for the theaters, for the studios.
Yeah.
You know, we're all friends and family, and it's just wonderful.
And of course, everybody making it what it's turned into over several decades. It's turned into a competition, and you know, what film is going to be number one, and is this film going to beat that film? And we were just so thrilled when 4 films came out.
I know.
A couple of weeks each other, and all of them made about the same amount of money on the same weekend. It was like, I don't care where we rank in that. I care that 4 movies can come out with that kind of variety. And because look, it's not to take away anything from the movies that are predominantly successful. They're a kind of movie that's for an audience, and we make movies for the audience. We want everybody to come, as many people to come, and for
we've always felt that way though, McHugh, because I've never felt the competition. We've always felt that way. I want to see a great movie, and I want to see successful movies, and the more successful they are, the more studios are going to make more. And you know, these artists, we spend a lot of time just working to educate the people around, and it's not a competition. I just don't, you know, it's just not it. I'm really like everyone. It's like, I love seeing movies in the theater. I want to see people, you know, be successful. And so it's a wonderful time right now.
Yeah. Especially in contrast to what it was just, you know,
oh my God,
this time last year.
Oh my gosh.
Do you feel validated by holding on to the movie for so long? I mean, I'm assuming the pressure to just put it out on Paramount Plus was immense, but you know, you stuck to your guns, and this is what happened.
Here's a wonderful thing. Everyone is happy. That's what I want.
Yeah.
It literally, I want everyone to be happy. When I'm making a film, we're making a movie together. Always my career is like, I want everyone to be happy, and to be my cast, everyone to have, you know, look, I work hard and I expect a lot, but I really want everyone to come out of it better than before. So it's just a great thing of seeing how happy audiences are, seeing how happy the studio and everyone in it, and that also worked tremendously hard in the release of it. And I look at it like they have families. Everyone's like, it needs to work. And I understand there's a business aspect to this. And there's many artists, like I spend time actually educating other artists on this to get a broader perspective of what they're doing and how the things that they do can affect so many other people's lives. And to have them recognize that, so that when we're talking about all the way down to the person that's serving popcorn in those theaters, you know, when I walk into a theater, I grew up going to movies. It's always like, you know, you look at everyone in that regard. So it's more important than kind of validation. It's just like, I'm just happy. You know, I'm just happy. I like see everyone win. It's just wonderful. And everybody, everyone's having a wonderful summer, and all the studios, I'm telling you, they're happy. You know, that's what they want.
It's pretty amazing. Charles, I can see you wanting to jump in. Go ahead.
Hey, Charles.
Well, I have Drew's gonna hate this. I have a lightning round thing I want to do with Tom. If you'll indulge me for a second.
Sure.
We're gonna. I want to list the list of directors you've worked with is absolutely insane. I want to list some of the directors you've worked with, and I want you to use one word to describe either the director or what the experience was like working with them.
That's hard now, man.
This is a bit. This is becoming a bit.
This is a bit.
Yeah.
I know, but I can't do one word. But try, and I'll see if I can do it.
Okay. You can do a few words. Just a quick phrase.
I'll do a few words.
Okay. Martin Scorsese.
Just exceptional.
Steven Spielberg.
Exceptional.
Stanley Kubrick.
Exceptional.
Francis Ford Coppola.
Exceptional.
Ridley Scott.
Exceptional.
Tony Scott.
Now, let me tell you something. I just never forget being on a movie set with Ridley and really seeing how he would light that set in London, and seeing then going to the rushes and seeing it on film, what he did with light and painting it and composition versus what you'd see to the eye or what I'd look through the lens. As I said, exceptional. Same with Tony, exceptional.
Tony, this is exceptional. Okay. Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yep, exceptional.
Michael Mann.
What's that?
Michael Mann.
Exceptional. I see a theme.
Pollock.
I see a theme developing.
What if Charles says McQuarrie and Cruz says meh?
Exceptional.
Okay.
Exceptional.
Curtis Hanson.
No, I don't mean to be kind of like that. It's just a very hard thing when you, with one word, to say what we spent. Some of these people I've known my whole life. We spent years working on projects together, and the common theme is they're each very unique, very different styles of the points of view of what they see in life and how that's reflected in their films. Their lens choice, you see their, the things that I was able as a young actor, I was always, and I'm always on set, very curious to be able to work with these people. And I was very specific about what I did and why I did it. I didn't just kind of do things. So I'd met Scorsese before, I'd met a lot of these directors before, and I knew their work. And to be able to see and develop these scripts, I don't know, it's interesting. Everyone's like, well, you've got a script, you go do it. Movies aren't made that way. And that's not how I learned how to make movies. It's always been a process. And it's always something that, as much as we would like to get it all on the page and then go shoot and everyone knows exactly what we're doing, that's not the way movies are made. And it's because it's a living thing that you have to explore and find, and things go wrong and things go well. And so you have to chase that kind of lightning, and to develop an ability and a skill to have the confidence to do that. So working where Ridley was a young filmmaker at that point, he had done Alien, yes, he'd done Blade Runner, and he'd done The Duelist. And he was an amazing, obviously, commercial director. And this was the biggest film that he'd made coming off of Blade Runner, and just seeing how he's developed, and seeing the power of his art. In the same way, to be there as a young actor on the set with Scorsese and Newman, and hearing the stories, not just gossip about it, but hearing how they made their films, what interested them, seeing how Scorsese took me through during the rehearsals, how he needed to create a different visual style for every pool game so that you had a progression, and that through motion and what he did with the camera to reveal character. Like you see when I shoot pool the first time, the break that I had, on that. And just that kind of experience of creating a character with them, that for me, I always felt like I could create a character. I was interested in the movie, and then I always had this instinct to be able to how I can create a character. And I would just kind of bring these characters to the directors, and, Vincent t-shirt and the big hair, you know what I mean, for Color of Money. And I came with that, I trained with nunchucks. So I just used I'd show Marty, what I do with the pool cue, to just, cause he wanted that kind of thing. It was a fun thing to play against, understanding what I can do as a supporting character versus the main protagonist. It's a different responsibility of storytelling in cinema and a movie. And so I was able to have that kind of freedom. And coming off of Maverick, that lead protagonist, where I'm really responsible for the narrative all the way through. It's just a different skill set doing that versus being a supporting character,
That was an interesting thing I heard you say, which I never really thought of. You were talking about that very thing, that it's a different responsibility, so and a lot of roles that people talk about, where Tom, a role in Magnolia, Frank T.J. Mackey in Magnolia, that's a different thing than if that was a leading man. Les Grossman, and what you could do as a Les Grossman. When people are saying, "Hey, make a Les Grossman movie," it's a very different movie if suddenly it's Les Grossman's movie. And I never really thought of it in that way, in terms of the notion of responsibility and the notion of what a protagonist is, and how in Maverick you're talking about creating a character and creating a story around that character, and how a lot of big movies that come out now are not really engineered around a protagonist. They're engineered around groups and teams and families of friends, and and it's the concept of the protagonist, the classic protagonist, is one that seems strangely, it's like a lost art. It's very unusual.
Yeah, you and I always talk a lot about that structurally. How do you, when you look at Jerry Maguire, you look at what you did with Top Gun, writing Maverick, McHugh, that we spent a lot of time going, and also like with Ethan, how pulling that in, where you have McHugh's like me, we love that cast. That's, when you look at these movies, it's like, I started out Taps or Risky Business. There's everywhere you look, I'm interested in every character. But you have that main line that is a communication with the audience that they're tracking off that emotionally. And it's like structurally, it's a different kind of thing. And with Ethan, we're constantly going, how do we build that roller coaster kind of emotion for that character? And as it's developed, and we've kind of, I think, gotten better and better at it, from Edge of Tomorrow, and just over the years, when you're looking at the kind of action, when you look at the bar scene in Top Gun, and I think that writing and that scene, McHugh, is so key, because it's, we talk about it, it's like haiku. You got to understand these characters immediately, and you're creating that affinity with the audience for these characters and understanding the world. And it's so efficient, just like the opera scene, that you created in Rogue.
I consider the bar to be as complex in its own way as the opera.
It's so deceiving. Everyone looks at it, the amount of time and combing through and discussing it and finding the shots and looking at, we had a beautiful set, and where to move miles, and it's like the scene that we're shooting this past week. We can't really talk about it now, and we'll talk about it further a couple of years, but you'll see, how do you have a scene where in the middle you feel where these characters have lived before without it being explicit, but you feel them in there, like the levels of conflict, responsibilities, pressures within 1 minute. And you have to tell that story and then bring the pressure down on the protagonist and have it be something where the movie doesn't stop. Because I remember looking at a film, and Ordinary People is a very interesting movie for me, because it's changed me, because I looked at it, I'm going, I am leaning into Ordinary People. And then you see other dramas with great performances, but I'm not leaning in. And I realized from, others probably knew it forever, but I just went, oh my gosh, there was a structure to the film that was a mystery, a thriller. And it kept me leaning in and allowed me that emotional investment with these characters in a way that if I didn't have that kind of tension, it didn't pull me in quite as much. And it was a different kind of experience. And I felt one that was less engaging. So when you look at a Mission, or you look at a Suspense, or you look at a Tootsie, let's say, even, you look at Some Like It Hot, you look at Harold Lloyd, Charlie Chaplin, there's a tension that's going on. The General, Okay.
Oh, Tootsie.
And
Tootsie is a total suspense film.
Exactly. And it allows tremendous humor. And you're leaning and you're paying attention to it. But those are the things that I felt when I saw McHugh's work and I read his work. It's like, that's there. So we have this scene with a large cast, and how do you hold them there? And how do you bring all this in where it's not information, but it's character progression and a world progression where, oh, this is the part of film where we're seeing a whole nother world. And that's really fun figuring that out, but you have to be willing to work at it. Like it's not a quick answer. You can't just write that down and do it. You have to explore, you have to cast them correctly. Then you have to find a way to really set them up in a way where that happens. It's like
serve them.
And you got to serve them, and you've got to keep working it and working it and working it. And it takes patience. It takes discipline. It takes a lot of care, and you have to be relentless about it. Otherwise, you're not going to have that kind of crackle for the audience that it takes. And it's got to happen in a way where you see it and it's effortless. The amount of time we all spent on the music, just the music alone in Top Gun in that bar. I mean, and every frame going through it, so that, and you just want it to feel like the breeze of coming in and the movie, and it's just effortless. You want everything to just, the audience isn't thinking about it. So that comes from just working and working and working.
You were very good about that. There's a cue in Top Gun. There's music playing on the jukebox that's buried in the bar scene. And we've been watching this scene forever. And Tom noticed that this one piece of music was playing on the cut to the pool table where Hangman is playing. And he said, if we just start the song earlier, it's Penny changing the mood in the scene instead of the pilots changing the mood. You're on Penny when the mood shifts and not the pilots. And it was the same thing you did actually when the first cut of Rogue Nation, the audience, you guys, I think we talked about this, the audience in the first test was saying it felt like the movie had 5 endings. And the response to those notes was, well, you got to cut out some of the business at the end. And Tom said, no, just listen to the music. That every scene with the temp score, it's da-da, and it feels like the movie's over. And he said to Joe Kramer, he goes, just write a 20-minute piece that plays through the entire last 2 reels like it's one sequence. And the score shot up, and all the notes went away. It's what Tom does, which is so incredible, is he's feeling the movie as much as he is watching it. He's looking at the emotional effect that it's honestly creating. And it's another interesting thing you said to me, Tom, just very recently, we were talking about the difference between actors, directors, writers who can be the audience as well as whatever job it is they're doing, an editor, anybody who can watch the film, but also sit in the audience and watch the movie as a representative of the audience. And that's something I see you do quite, it's remarkable. Well, and it's always the same 2 words. I'll write a scene. I'll have worked on this scene all night long. And it's like, I crushed this one. This is going to be awesome. And I give it to Tom, and he reads. There's the ones where he's just like, it's awesome. I love it. And then there's a pause, and he goes, it's interesting.
No. Sorry.
I know. I was like, oh my God, where is it? And I cannot see it. It's in panic. I was like, what do you mean it's interesting? You're out of your mind. It's awesome. It's not interesting. And he's like, I'm just not connected to. I was like, what do you mean? The whole scene is about this thing. And it's not about what the scene is about. It's truly about how the scene feels. And what we did in this scene we've been talking about, it's all exposition, and I can't stand exposition. But sometimes it's necessary. You got to find a way to make it emotional. It's how do you present all of the same information in a way that the audience never has to listen to a word of it to understand all of it. If they happen to hear it, great. Or if they happen to listen to it on the third or fourth time they watch it, how do you feel the scene to understand it? That's really what you're great at, is just you're this raw nerve when you're watching that stuff. I've never seen anybody be more honest about something you created, to be able to look at it and just go, yeah, I know what I meant, but this is actually what I'm feeling from it. And that gives everybody around you permission to react to it and to say, and I think that's why we work really well together, is I'll look at it and just go, yeah, it doesn't really matter, because it's never it's not about what I want. It's not really about what I meant the scene to be or something I'd love to put in a movie, but we just look at stuff and say, here's what it feels like. Do we want to keep going in that direction, or do we want to try to get what we were after? There's a character enters the movie. We shot this character's entrance and loved it. And then we go home and come in the next morning and go, I was thinking about it. And if we just make this one little change to their entrance, it'll feel like this. And we shot this entrance every morning when we came in, and it was a little different. And then we said, oh, you know what? We changed the whole scene again and realized the entrances we shot didn't work. And we need to do it one more time where you don't do this little bit of behavior. And we went back to an earlier take, and we had done that. So we created bits for ourselves. We found this scene and we found these feelings. And that's really the fun of it, is it's a living, breathing, growing thing in an action movie, a quote unquote action movie. Why does that stuff have to be limited to melodrama and character dramas and awards movies? It's like, to me, there's no difference. It's not. I don't really.
A movie's a movie. A story's a story. And thank you for what you said, McHugh. Thank you.
That's very true.
I think that's why we work so well together, because we are serving the audience. And also, you got to constantly pop yourself out to go, okay, be willing to say I'm lost, and be willing to go, okay, let's just let it happen, and we're going to find it together.
Yeah.
And just keep communicating, and we just keep confronting it, and we're going to figure it out somehow. And that's what we do. It's like, also, like, did you ever tell them about the Benji scene in Rogue Nation? Where you shot it? It was like, you said, I figured the scene out, and then you wrote the whole scene. It was just wrote the whole monologue at the end of Rogue. The restaurant scene.
The bombs. Rogue. Did we talk about that, guys? When we talked about Rogue, we must have.
I don't know if we did, actually. So please.
Well, I know the story about the note cards, right? Like Simon Pegg was holding note cards for you to read.
Oh yeah, because we wrote the whole scene. We had 4 days to shoot it, and this is Benji sitting at the table with the bomb strapped to his chest. We knew stuff in the scene, but we didn't really know. Is that me glitching?
I think it's Tom.
Okay.
I think we might have lost.
He's in a car.
Yeah, you're glitching.
It's Heather's phone.
Oh, there you go.
We can hear you now.
Okay.
Let me just tell you one thing. Really got to make McHugh, when he knows how to write something, like when he feels it like an actor, it's very interesting. Like when he feels it like an actor, he wrote the scene, and like with Bill Paxton and everything, you wrote that in like a day. That whole sequence, that structure just fell right into place. And it's so fun because we'd been working. We're under a lot of pressure. We couldn't figure out the end. And we knew this location. We walked around, was like, build a restaurant here, do this. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And then remember you said, I know the scene. And you pitched it to me. Like, I just don't have time to write it. You wrote it that morning on your way to work, on his way to work. And you're like, oh my God, I read it. I was like, this is awesome. I can't react.
Of course, this is happening while he's telling you a great story about me.
I know you.
Oh no!
I know you guys have to get back to work. So, he's gone. So
disconnected. I'm sure he will not want it to just end it that way. But yes, we do have to actually get to a 6:30 dinner.
Okay, go to dinner. Oh wait, here he comes back. Hold on, we'll have him say goodbye.
Hi guys, we're back.
Hey guys, we're gonna get cut off. I just want to say thank you guys for everything.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
everything.
very much.
Thank you for everything.
Seriously.
Such a pleasure, guys. Thank you.
And Tom, thank you for the most comprehensive 10-minute interview I think I've ever.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I wonder why you liked it so much, McQuarrie.
You guys go get them.
All right, brother.
All
I'll see you
right,
in a
bye,
bit.
Enjoy your dinner, and I'm sure we'll all talk very soon.
Thank you, guys. Look forward to it.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
And we're back. Wow, what an emotional roller coaster, Charles.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to ask you too, because McQuarrie at the end says to Tom jokingly, like, oh, that's the most comprehensive 10-minute interview. So I think he was only planning to talk to us for 10 minutes.
Yeah, probably. I mean, we know they all had dinner plans that we were up against. So I'm sure that.
And I'm pretty positive we made them late.
Yes. That's okay. It was for a good cause. No, I was shocked that he was on there for so long.
Yeah.
I'm glad that, he was engaged and seemed to know about us.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just amazing. I mean, everybody was great. I can't believe we had the range of people on the episode and that they were also generous with their time and information. So
yeah.
Should we thank everybody? We need to thank...
We do have to thank everybody. I also want to tell everyone that we're going to do an epic breakdown of this episode on our Patreon that you have to check out. But before that, I want to just quickly say just two quick things about the episode. I love that they talked about the bar scene in Top Gun Maverick, because you know how obsessed I am with that scene. And I wanted to ask them a question about it, but then they just talked about it anyway. And that scene, as I've said countless times, it's like a masterclass in directing and writing and editing and cinematography. I just love that they ended up talking about that scene and how much went into it. And another thing I want to say was, I don't think when I did that little lightning round game with Cruise that ended up being a bit, I don't think I even got through half of the list I made of the directors that Cruise has worked with. It's unbelievable.
Thank God.
Yes, I know. But it's crazy, the list of people he's worked with, and that was so fun. So anyway, please sign up for our Patreon at patreon.com/lightthefuse. If you sign up at the bonus content level, you will get our epic breakdown of this episode, where we're going to talk about everything, every little detail that they got into about Mission Impossible 7 and 8 and Top Gun Maverick. We're going to talk about it all. And on top of that, we also have, we've done commentaries for all 6 of the Mission Impossible movies. You get that if you sign up at the bonus content level. And we do weekly episodes. So you get all of our old episodes that we've done for a couple of years now, more than that now, I think. And so all those become available to you if you sign up for our Patreon.
That feels like more of a threat than anything. I don't know who wants that many episodes of us gabbing, but yes, they're all there.
It is a threat. You better sign up. And also you can sign up at a higher level and be part of our amazing monthly Zoom chat, because we're going to be talking about this episode this weekend with that amazing group of people this Sunday, all about that. So please sign up for our Patreon at patreon.com/lightthefuse.
Yes.
This is going to make you feel uncomfortable, Drew, but I'm going to I got to plug you, because you are a phenomenal writer and journalist.
Oh,
and
gosh,
I just want to say that people should follow you on Twitter. It's @DrewTailored. That's TAILORED. And you've been working for The Wrap lately, but you've had articles in the New York Times, Vanity Fair, and countless other outlets. If any of you out there love animation in particular and all things Disney, you should definitely follow Drew and read his incredible work. He actually wrote the Art of Onward book that is a making of the Pixar movie Onward from a couple of years ago. He also has another podcast called Fine Tuning, which is all about the world of animation. But his writing goes beyond that as well. He does fantastic interviews and articles about film and theme parks, everything.
Oh, God, I am dying.
You've been, my closest friend for so long, since we were in high school, juniors, seniors in high school, and this has been such an amazing journey to go on with you.
Well, I think you deserve all the credit. You have wrangled this episode and countless others to the ground and been so effusive with your time, with your expertise. I could not edit anything or put any of these things together. It's just absolutely amazing. And you have amazing movies that are available to stream right now. Where are things streaming, Charles?
Yes, well, Night Owls is currently on HBO Max in the States. I'm not sure where it is overseas. But it's also on Canopy, which is that free streaming service if you have a library card, which is available in a lot of places in the U.S.
It's a good service.
And yeah, it is. And I think it's in a couple of places, a couple other streaming services as well. But notably, it's on HBO Max right now, which is awesome. You can also rent it or buy it on like a paid VOD service like Apple or Amazon, stuff like that. They'll have it available as well. And then also I did a movie so Night Owls I co-wrote with my writing partner Seth Goldsmith, and I directed that. But this other movie I only directed, I did not write. It's called Nasty Piece of Work, and that's on Hulu. It was part of a Blumhouse anthology series. That's a dark Christmas nasty thing called Nasty Piece of Work. But Night Owl is very near and dear to my heart. It is very personal and an awesome comedy drama that is something I'm very proud of. So check that out. Yeah, I guess people should
well, I gotta
follow
ask.
us
Wait a minute. Before we get into that, Charles, I gotta ask you a cue.
Oh.
Who's on our show next week?
Maggie Q.
What?
Yes, we talked with Maggie. We had a dog party with Maggie Q. We each brought our own dogs.
Yes.
To meet with Maggie Q and her dogs, and we had this amazing interview in person, which is it was so great to do that because it's been so long. We've really only had one in-person interview in the last 2 years plus. So it was nice to be able to sit outside with her with our dogs and have a conversation. So that'll be our next 2 episodes, and you're all gonna love it. She's so funny and is a great storyteller and is so wonderful. So that's something you got to come back for next week and the week after.
All right, give us your plugs. Well, do you have anybody to thank this week? Or
yeah, I want to give a special thank you. I'm going to thank all the monthly thank yous. I'm going to do them all in this episode. Special thank you to Jacob from Holland, Sonia Miranda, Jacob Ballard, Derek Klingel, Matthew Costa, and Ben Wright. Thank you all so much. You have been with us for so long and are amazing members of the IMF that we appreciate what you guys have done for us so much.
Yes.
Also have to thank Kevin Blumenfeld, our composer, for his legally dissimilar music that he gave us.
Yeah.
It's just different enough from the Mission Impossible theme. Although that plot theme, I think he's gonna get in trouble for that one.
200 episodes and he's never been sued. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's true. 200 episodes, and I think he officially. It was just a joke. He's never actually been sued yet.
Yeah, it's kind of alarming, actually.
Hey, let's put that challenge out there to Paramount now.
Yeah.
Come on, Paramount. 200 episodes with this. Take Kevin down. He deserves it.
He deserves it. It's egregious. It's been going on for too long.
And also, this episode's mixed by Luke Burson, and Luke's done amazing work for us over the years as well, doing so much editing. So thank you to Luke. And I guess that's it.
Can I remind people to follow us on social media at LightTheFuse-Pod on Twitter and Instagram?
Yes, there's so much good stuff on our social media. Every week we do stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and also you talking about the commentaries makes me realize we're going to have to do a Maverick commentary as soon as it's on digital.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah. But anyway, go follow us on social media. That's where you'll get the latest updates from the world of Mission Impossible and Top Gun Maverick. And also be sure to like, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. I hope that if you're here for the first time that you'll go back and listen to some of the other episodes because Charles is right. We've had so many amazing people from every strata of these productions. I mean, you will learn so much about everything and also about how people feel about Tom Cruise's hair. So go back, listen to them all.
We get as many people as we can
Yes.
to rank his haircuts.
Yeah.
So you got to go back. That's a must listen. I mean, it really is amazing. We've talked to so many brilliant artists, and it's really humbling to have spoken to all these people in such a short amount of time. It's crazy that we've done this over the last 4 years.
Yeah, it's been a love. I never thought this would happen. I never thought this would rule our lives like it has, but I am so happy that it has because it really is a gift, and it's always a pleasure, Charles, to get to see you and talk to you, even if we're working on this dumb show. So
yeah.
Thank you so much for going on this journey with me. It's just amazing.
It's hilarious to listen to us on that first episode when we're talking about how we're going to try to maybe get some guests. We'll see what we can do. And now we got the man himself, Tom Cruise, on this episode. So it's just
pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to thank Tom McQuarrie, Eddie Hamilton, the cast of Top Gun Maverick, Greg Tarzan Davis, Danny Ramirez, and Glen Powell, Mark Gatiss, and Nick Offerman.
And Erik Jenderson as well.
And Erik Jenderson, a man of few words, but yes, he was delivering some wonderful insight there. So thank you all so much for being a part of this episode. And as always, we'll be back next week.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. Before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcast@gmail.com. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.